my god, he's going to go around the inside and he's going to send it. He's taking the lead of the Canadian Grand Prix on the last lap. Matt Turner takes the win in a remarkable race. We have teammates coming together. How devastating!
And welcome in everybody to the iFormula League Formula 3 round number 12 here from the circuit Gilles Villeneuve, also known more lovingly as the Canadian Grand Prix. And I'll tell you what, we have got an amazing race here today. We're looking at arguably a track that a lot of drivers would say is a driver's circuit. You know, a lot of people saying that when you drive at a circuit like the circuit Gilles Villeneuve, is that you really have to dedicate yourself to putting your car in the absolute best position possible in a lot of these corners, because it's very tight, very difficult to pass, and it's just one of those circuits that I think everyone knows and everyone respects. There's lots of straights, so lots of opportunities to get the slipstream and be able to make some really good runs on your opponents into the final chicane, the wall of champions. If you can avoid that outside wall, you could put yourself into a position where you could take the win from literally anywhere on the grid here. Lots of room for mistakes, lots of room for error, but also lots of room to prove yourself a hero in the same token. And yeah, I mean, in terms of the F3 championship right now, I will say the actual championship standings have been pretty locked up now. I believe the DriveX esports team, really the only ones competing amongst themselves for the top spots, and the team's championship has gone that of the way of the DriveX team. But the CUDA team is still in the running, potentially for a team's second place. Although I believe actually some of their drivers are not racing here with us today, so potentially the Lumos team may actually end up taking that championship, Brendan Walker obviously being a privateer now. So that's sort of where we are in terms of the championship. Obviously we've had a week off, so everyone's still trying to get their bearings back again, and everyone's trying to make things all good and yeah, just rework themselves, build themselves back up to be able to race around this glorious Canadian track. But speaking of racing around this track, we are in qualifying right now as one of our sessions. So we will see if we can jump on board with a couple of drivers and get an idea as to just what it looks like around here in a qualifying session. And I will stick up the standings here for you all as well as it stands right now, as that seemed to be a big off there from one of the drivers. I believe that was Brandon Walker racing for his own team. But at the moment, Victor Barris once again leading the way, as you would probably expect. But Frederick Larson is doing a good job, currently 0.004 off of Victor Barris. So Larson, we're on board with him right now. We're going to see what he can do, whether he can take his win here in the F3 and prove to us all that he is one of the better F3 drivers. Obviously has a lot of success in F2, being a stand-in primarily for Orion Racing. And Jake Potts doing an amazing job at putting himself now on pole. And to be fair, with a lap time like that, a 1:30.35, Victor's going to have to pull someone out of the bag here, and obviously if Victor can manage to do that, he will take pole position, and it looks as though he is doing exactly that. Victor Barris just coming through the final corner here, trying to avoid, I'm not sure who that 47 is actually, Stuart Gibbons, there we go. Just trying to avoid him, make sure that he doesn't have any collisions, and Victor Barris does find the time, puts himself back up into pole position for now. In terms of length, here in this session. 5 minutes gone so far, almost 6 minutes gone of a 25-minute qualifying session. So plenty of time to get in your banker lap and then properly go for it every single lap after that. And you know, these cars, I will say, they may not be the fastest compared to like the F1 that we'll see later today, and unfortunately we didn't see the F2. There was just unfortunately some incidents that happened there, but it happens, you know, sometimes these things happen, and you just have to continue on, and we're back here on the F3, round number 12, with only 2 races left of the season after this. Will be Zandvoort and then Silverstone to round out the season. So 2 rounds left to go, and plenty to fight for still in the midfield pack, as well as I believe for top 3, although getting the points all updated right now is just everyone who is currently working on it. Currently, I believe the point standings would be, I want to say the DriveX team are both together, and then after that I believe it will be, I want to say Jake Potts off the top of my head, but I will have to check that out and obviously get back to you all on that one near when the session is nearing its close. We'll see what the points situation is looking like. But Brendan Walker doing a pretty good job right now to set himself in P8, just as I was about to say P10. He goes and sets a faster lap, so good job from him getting himself back up into P8, as we say in a privateer team now. Jake Potts still on pole position by 2/10 from Victor Barris, and then 3/10 from Barris's teammate Antonio Jimenez. Then a driver who we aren't used to seeing necessarily in the upper tier of results, and is definitely surprising me right now, is Joachim Flubman. And you know, I think Flubman has had a lot of unfortunate results this season. Potentially has had the pace to do pretty well in a lot of these races. So the fact that he's now up there in 4th position currently, showing that he's got the pace around here. Maybe he just really enjoys this Canadian circuit. It is one that, as I said before, a lot of these drivers will either have a love-hate relationship with it. They absolutely love this circuit, or they absolutely hate it. I think that's what you normally get. Either people will say that it's too tight, it's basically a street circuit, but not. And then a lot of other people saying, oh, but it's actually really good because it's so tight, because the corners are so... As we see a big crash there from Flubman, and I believe that's the 47 of Stuart Gibbons as well there, who just came off. And then I believe there was someone else involved in that as well. I believe Dominic Herbert potentially was involved in that, spun it into the first corner, but it doesn't look as though anyone is setting any purple times right now. Sean Roberts currently up on his times though, and Danny O'Keefe also up on his time, but not enough to take 4th position from Flubman, not right now at least. Patrick Olsen will be setting his first flying lap, so interesting to see where he is going to come out. And then O'Keefe's teammate Frederick Larson also setting a slightly faster lap, but not fast enough to overtake his teammate. Obviously, we know Larson's quick. We've seen it before. So interesting to see whether or not Larson actually pushes to overtake his teammate. But Patrick Olsen, who I believe is Joachim's teammate, puts himself in P11. And I believe there is another member of that team. I believe it was Halmar, also racing under that Team Banana livery. Always good to see the Bananas out there on track, as Antonio Jimenez is on a flyer right now. See if we can catch him into the final corner, and if we can, let's see if we can see what it looks like here when you're actively pushing, when you're trying to go for the fastest lap possible, avoiding the wall on exit. And is this going to be a faster lap for Antonio Jimenez? Is he going to put himself on pole position? Not quite. I believe Jake Potts also improved his lap time there at the same time. So, unfortunately, Jimenez improves, but so does Potts. For Antonio Jimenez, that's going to be something that he's going to look at trying to improve on. Obviously, probably knows where a little bit of time is in that lap, so can maybe try to just find every little bit of time and get in a super quick lap here around the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. And we're just going to see what his sector times look like as he goes through sectors 1 and sectors 2. See whether or not he is purple in any of them. I believe he was purple in sector 1 and down a little bit in sector 2, unlike Jake Potts, who didn't go purple in sector 1 but did go purple in sector 2. So potentially another lap here where Antonio Jimenez will take pole, but not for very long, because Jake Potts will get it right back. And I'd imagine if Jake Potts can get a sort of slipstream from anyone around him, then that could also improve his lap time massively, especially on the back end of this straight here. It is such a long straight before the start-finish line that any advantage you can get is going to be massive on this track. But Antonio Jimenez does come across the line and does not improve, actually. A 129.95 did not gain time in the last sector. So we will jump on board now with Jake Potts to see whether or not he improved. But it doesn't look like he did either. Maybe made him a little mistake potentially in the last sector. You know, I have always loved a good nail-biting qualifying session. There's just something about it, I think, when everyone is so close in qualifying that any mistake, anything that the drivers can do to make up that 10th could see them jump from, like, you know, 8th upwards. It's always nice to see. I do love a nice qualifying session. I think they're underrated as a session, I think. Obviously, a lot of people care about where they qualify, but I don't think many people necessarily watch the qualifying sessions as a session to really get involved in and get excited about. There are obviously notable exceptions, especially if you're supporting anyone. See Nicholas Marshall shouting out the CUDA people, of which I don't think there's that many who are racing today, actually. And oh, unfortunately, I believe that was Jake Potts hitting the wall of champions there. Very hard impact with the wall. Tire looked like it came off, but it is back on the car. Gotta thank some sort of voodoo for that one. It was enough at least to keep him going, at least for the next couple of minutes here, as we are now 13 minutes here in the session. Still another 12 to go before we jump on board for the race itself. The race itself, I believe we're looking at... Let me see if I can find how many laps we are looking for. 35 race laps here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. 35 laps should be enough for us to have an absolutely titanic battle between the Lumos team and the... maybe a whole bunch of the other teams as well. Obviously with currently Larson there with 3/10 off of where Potts is qualified. We can keep that race pace up, who knows? We may see the Drive X Esports team, obviously a team that we know is incredibly fast in their own right. Maybe we can see them improve and get into a good position going forward. Obviously, when it comes to the race, Larson wants to finish on the podium at least, and Jake Potts has managed to improve his lap time now and does go almost a 10th clear of I believe that's Antonio Jimenez. Let's get the two names mixed up. Victor Barris and Antonio Jimenez on the same team, obviously. Sometimes do look at them and get them a little bit confused with each other, but I believe Antonio Jimenez is not answering back right now. It's just on an out lap, trying to warm up those tires, get ready for another flyer. Danny O'Keefe currently improving. See whether or not he can catch up to where his teammate is, put himself maybe 5th position and have it be a 2x2 second, well, I say second and third row, it would be first and second, and then third and fourth rows starts. But Danny O'Keefe does not improve on his time, unfortunately, so we'll have to try and go again. Jake Potts still improving, so either the track's getting colder, everyone's starting to find a bit more time, especially through the middle sector, I'm noticing. Through the first, people aren't seeming to push as hard, but definitely in the second sector, there is a lot of time to be found. Victor Barris currently not improving on his time either, as we are on board with Antonio Jimenez, seeing whether or not Antonio Jimenez can find the time and then overtake Jake Potts for the qualifying pole position. He just wants to prove that he is still one of the faster drivers in the league, and definitely great guys to have around as well. Obviously, the team itself, one that we've grown to talk a lot with here in the comms booth, so we've gotten to learn about the guys and what they do and how they are as a team, and it's nice to hear their viewpoints on things and how they just really have the passion for it. They really have a passion for racing, and especially sim racing, and really just trying to do the best that they can for the team. But Jake Potts did improve again, so Antonio Jimenez is going to have to find a little bit more time here. And Jake Potts is almost looking to try and run away with it, potentially, at least in qualifying, and then maybe get off to a good start, clean into turn 1, and then from there, just see you later, Antonio Jimenez, and just lead us on to the lead of the race. But we'll have to see whether or not that does end up happening. Obviously, we know Antonio Jimenez and Victor Barris' race pace is very similar to what their qualifying pace is in a lot of situations. It's scarily fast in a lot of the time. So yeah, it's going to be really cool to see final couple of rounds here of the season. Starting to wind down a little bit. We get nearer the end. I think everyone's starting to relax a little bit more. That seemed like it was a nice touch there, but from Antonio Jimenez, maybe taking a little bit of rubber off those tires and maybe a little bit of paint off those wonderfully white front wings, and also the rear side pods as well. I imagine the side pods didn't really get touched though, with the wheels being so far extended from the rest of the car. As is common in single seaters, of course. But Antonio Jimenez has set a purple middle sector, so is definitely trying his best to gain that pole position. And just as I say that, I believe that was Danny O'Keefe bumping himself up another position, and then Arturo Mayorga also jumping up a position or two, with just finding more time out there as the session goes on. Obviously, the weather will play a factor in whether or not the drivers are able to find more time. Obviously, the colder it gets, the faster you'll be able to go, in theory. Antonio Jimenez does improve, but again, nowhere near enough to challenge Jake Potts yet. Jake having an absolutely incredible lap when he set that 129.66. So since then, it just seems like no one else has really been able to touch him. And I think what that means is, as the qualifying session will be nearing its end, we're just going to see Jake Potts go out there, see if he can improve at all, as Cole Day does manage to now improve and put himself into 10th position. So if that was a race, obviously he would be in the points, but this is just qualifying, so obviously wants to gain a few more positions from P10 if possible on the race start, and maybe just stay where he is, gain a couple points for the team. Obviously now, with only 2 races left after this one, we are looking at every race counting towards something. We'll jump on board here with Frederick Larsen and see what Frederick is capable of doing. I was noticing in qualifying, Frederick seemed to be pushing the car a lot to try and get a lot out of it, and unfortunately just sometimes pushed it a little bit too far. Speaking of someone who isn't pushing it hard enough, apparently, is Jake Potts, who's decided he's going to go even quicker still. And again, all the improvements coming through the middle sector so far, so I don't know whether or not there's some sort of line that people are now finding and optimizing as we get later on into the session, but Jake Potts is definitely doing an incredible job as far as that's concerned, and will probably improve his lap time once again here. And let's just see how fast he is. Comes across the line and does not improve. I believe could have been potentially on an outlap. So we know the pace is there, but that was a 1:30.93 last lap, potentially also invalid on that fast lap that we just saw. Not quite quick enough to put himself even further ahead of the DriveX Esports guys, but hey, as long as you're on pole position, I don't think it matters how far ahead you are. But the number 13 of Daniel Heras is starting to finally do one of his first flying laps and maybe get one in there. We'll see where Daniel comes across the line at. We'll see whether or not he puts himself into a good qualifying position, or potentially another invalid lap. So unfortunately for Daniel, at the moment he will be starting at the back of the grid. That's okay, still more time to get laps in. I'd imagine 2 more laps by now if you are looking to gain one more shot at it, as Antonio Jimenez was looking to get one more shot at it, and still incredibly close, 1/10 off Jake Potts. And that is not something to be scoffed at, obviously, with Jake having set that amazing lap time of 1:29.660. It's a lap that has seemingly gone untouched up until this point. Jimenez obviously the closest with a 1:29.74. And as 2 minutes left on the session, I'd imagine we're going to see anyone who's around about halfway through the circuit be able to get in potentially 2 more laps, but everyone else only 1 more if you are out on an outlap now. Patrick Olsen looking to improve, and Daniel is still looking to set his first valid lap, as he will come through the final chicane here, take far too much of the curve and almost ended up in the Wall of Champions. Was very lucky to get away with that one. We'll have to wait and see whether or not he puts himself up there, or whether or not he had an invalid lap somewhere along the line, but I think it could have been yet another invalid lap. So unfortunately for Daniel, still no time on the board just yet. Victor Barris though, currently green in Sector 1 and Sector 2. Potentially a very quick final sector coming up, and if he can get it, we are looking at a pole position potentially for Victor Barris. Is going to have to find 0.3 of a second based on his previous lap, and as he comes through the final corner, it looked relatively clean. It looked like it was good. Is it good enough? And unfortunately, it's not enough to take Jake Potts, but it is enough to get on the front row alongside him and ahead of his teammate. Both those drivers very, very quick indeed. Brandon Walker still looking to improve his lap time. Is he going to be able to find any more time and put himself potentially within the top 10? We'll wait and see, as I believe he has gone back into pit lane now, actually, so he will not be doing another lap. The only people still on 4 laps at the moment is Patrick Olsen and Daniel Heras, and also the man on our screens even, Joachim Flubman, although Flubman is now in the wall, and that will be his session over. So let's see what Patrick Olsen can do. I believe Patrick Olsen has just crossed the line as well, so potentially that is it. Or potentially, no, did start just before the timer ran out, so he will hopefully get enough time to finish this flying lap. But if the standings stay as they are so far, then we will see Jake Potts, followed by Victor Barris, followed by Antonio Jimenez, followed then by Larson and team of the Bananas, as we see Patrick Olsen maybe slipping on one there, getting on the power just a little bit too early, and that will close out our qualifying session, and we will move on obviously into the warm-up. Here is going to be our next session, just a 5-minute break in between. Make sure you can load up the race setup, make sure you're all ready to go, grab yourself a little bit of a break, a snack, a drink. We're going to go racing here, or I believe I said 35 laps, 36 laps, and about that. I always forget. Qualifying session is now over. Should hopefully be switching through to warm up here any minute now. And I think from a team's point of view, obviously there is a battle between, I believe it was Lumos and the Orion Racing team for the F3 constructors. So we're looking at Jake Potts potentially trying to finish well, and then obviously Frederick Larson and Danny O'Keefe also trying to do the exact same to really push that team's championship for second and third to its limits. Hopefully on the final round of Silverstone we get an interesting fight there developing, but we will have to wait and see. But let's bring up the results of qualifying for you on your screens so we can get an idea on just how close that qualifying session was for the top three. Jake Potts, Victor Barris, Antonio Jimenez all separated by 1/10 of a second. And then followed by them was Frederick Larson, 5/10 off, but seems to be sort of in a field of his own with Joachim Flubman there. 8/10 off, followed by Danny O'Keefe, who is Frederick Larson's teammate, so able to start behind Frederick Larson and maybe work together to push ahead of the Team Banana team. Then, followed by Danny O'Keefe, we do have Dominic Herbert and Sean Roberts for the Pure Racing Opposition team, and then Frankie there in the P9 position, followed by Colday in P10, Brandon Walker, who is a privateer. I do need to change that, I do apologise. I will need to change that around at some point. Brandon Walker obviously now not a part of CUDA anymore as far as I'm aware. And then we've got Patrick Olsen there in P12, followed by Matt Turner in P13, Arturo Mayorga in P14, Stuart Gibbons there in P15. See if we can skip ahead a couple of positions to see where the rest of the grid lined up. Unfortunately, it's not letting me scroll, so I'll have to wait and get back to you all on that one. But in terms of the race itself, obviously there will be a pit stop having to be done by these drivers at some point. Obviously with 35 laps, it is a long race. At least as far as the F3 is concerned. And what a beautiful circuit to have those 35 laps, though. Salute Giles indeed. Circuit Gilles Villeneuve is definitely... It's in a very nice location, I think. Got so much going on around this track that sort of looking at it is very pleasant. Obviously, it will have to worry sometimes about potentially spearing off, and if the iRacing physics have been anything to go by, ending up in the water. Thankfully, I don't think it happens too often. But definitely a race that is going to require a lot from these drivers, I imagine. It's going to require a lot of focus to make sure you don't end up in, as we've said before, the Wall of Champions. It's definitely a part of the track where if you make a mistake, your race is probably over, and also probably someone else's as well. Obviously, one line through that chicane, you don't want to be making any mistakes. And also, you have to be careful of people going into the pit lane. Obviously, the pit lane entry here is very, very fast. Quite a short pit lane as well in comparison to a lot of other circuits. So you don't necessarily gain time through it, obviously having to travel at a slower speed anyway, but you can still... You lose a lot less time in comparison to, say, the pit lane at Interlagos or the pit lane at Kyalami, for example. Just two pit lanes that I know are just a little bit longer than this one. And also the fact that the pit lane exit here will feed you right back out to the racing line means that it can be a little bit scary for some of these drivers. Obviously, when you go through turn 1, you need to be careful of people who have potentially just come in to the pits. But it's definitely a... I mean, this circuit is it's just one of those that I think is just absolutely incredible every time we see it. But here we go then. For the race, we will see if we can get our grid up here and running. So Jake Potts did qualify on pole, followed by Victor Barris. As we mentioned, down to 15th, Emmanuel Gibano was 16th, Olmar was 17th, and then Daniel, without setting a lap time, qualified himself in P18. But getting ready is our pole position man here, Jake Potts. We'll see what he can do into turn number 1. And here we go, revving up. All 5 lights are on. We are green, and it looks like it was a good start from most of the drivers. There's a couple being incredibly aggressive there in the background, maybe trying to avoid a couple people who didn't get a necessarily great start. And there looks like there was a crash at the back of the field, and unfortunately that is now a massive collision there. I believe Jake Potts spun it there on throttle, and his rear end of his car is completely gone now. He's got no rear wing, no rear right tire, and that is his race probably over, and promoting Joachim Flubman into the lead of this race. So not only did Jake Potts collect Victor Barris and Antonio Jimenez, the rest of the field has managed to get through pretty cleanly. And I believe that will be a massive incident there. I can't imagine that Jake Potts will be coming back from an incident like that, but we have seen crazier. Victor Barris is currently already back out on track, so managed to get that car repaired nice and quickly, but did have to suffer the tow from it. So Joachim Flubman currently leading this race for Team Banana, something that you wouldn't say necessarily too often, and Frederick Larson is behind them in 3rd, and Dominic Herbert in P2 for the PRO team. And that start was a little bit crazy, to be honest. It was very, very scary for a lot of those drivers having to go through and avoid all the carnage that was caused by Jake Potts just spinning it on the exit. There seems to be now Dominic Herbert just trying to warm up the tires a bit. Maybe a couple of other drivers doing the same thing. Down the straight. trying not to get caught off by the same thing that everyone else did. But there is a safety car out, unfortunately, so that does mean we can maybe take a look at what happened here. On board with Jake Potts we go. Into turn 1. Takes a pretty aggressive line, which then forces him to fortunately have a really shallow line, and then, yeah, round he goes, and that is collected. And he tries to get the car back round, and unfortunately clips the rear of his car into that wall, and that car's going nowhere fast. Doesn't really sound like it's too happy about not going anywhere fast either. Let's see what happened here with Victor Barris as well. I believe this will be a very similar sort of scenario. Victor Barris just gets on the power. Jake Potts spins ahead of him. He's got nowhere to go. Tries to go around the outside, and that is another DriveX car on top of him. So that was his teammate just sailing right on over. But Victor Barris did manage to get going again, so yeah, it looked as though, thankfully for a lot of these drivers, it wasn't actually all too bad. I'll see if I can try and get this from a better viewpoint here. So as he crashes, obviously we have a lot of collisions there, and I believe that's one of the other Orion Racing cars there. Did get collected. I believe that would have been of Danny O'Keefe. So just an unfortunate couple of incidents there that have now put Jake Potts and Antonio Jimenez a bit further down the field than they would have liked to have been. But it did promote Frederick Larson up 1 place. Brandon Walker's gained 7 off the start, with Matt Turner also gaining 8 behind him. Stuart Gibbons gaining 8 as well. The Team Banana team doing incredibly well off the start. Definitely gaining off of the incidents that we had from the DriveX team, as Victor Barris does now go into the pit lane, as well as Sean Roberts as well. I'd imagine to repair damage from what happened afterwards. Well, I'm not quite sure what happened here with Sean Roberts to why Sean needs to come back, but let's take a look on board with Sean Roberts. Let's see what happened here going into the hairpin. He turns in, and yeah, just gets on the power too early and spins himself around. No damage though, it doesn't look like, so unsure as to why he was pitting so early. Maybe just a tactical decision to try and make it to the end of this 35 lap race here from where he is. That will see Jake Potts and Antonio Jimenez 2 laps down currently. Victor Barris almost another lap down on the rest of the field as well, so unlucky for the DriveX team and the Lumos member of Jake Potts there. But cold tires put down the throttle just a little bit too early, and that's what can happen. Obviously, we're looking at a very similar situation. Probably going to happen here. As I say, the cold tires, you got to make sure that you do not spin it through turn 1. I always say, if you make it through turn 1, lap 1, then you set yourself up to have a very good race. So let's just see if that is true. Obviously, Flubman is leading the way. Will go when Flubman wants to go. Has to wait for the safety car, obviously, to pull into the pit lane. We will see if we can get an idea on what the rest of the field looks like it is doing. on the back end here of Joachim Flubman leading the race for Team Banana. This will be obviously the start of lap number 4, so 31 laps to go after this lap, and just as he exits the chicane, he is gone. And that has enabled himself to get a very good lead over Dominic Herbert, who we are now on board with. And provided Joachim doesn't have a similar sort of mistake as to Jake Potts did, this will be a very nice and clean turn 1 from all these drivers. Just looking a bit further back through the field, seeing whether or not anyone else has had any incidents, and that is Patrick Olsen trying to make a move up the inside, potentially, of Daniel Harras, who does manage to make it through. Sean Roberts looking to do the same up the inside of the chicane. We've seen incidents happen here before, but both drivers being very respectful, managing to make time on that one. Cold Day also going past, and now we're looking at Victor Barris also trying to do the same with Jake Potts in tow. Antonio Jimenez obviously all being part of this, and I believe they've all gotten past Daniel now. So everyone's made it through nice and clean for the moment, and we will jump back on board here between the Team Banana teammates. That is Patrick Olsen letting, Holmar allowing Patrick Olsen to go past, but now has to worry about Sean Roberts potentially making a move here into the hairpin. I believe that's where we are on circuit anyway. Yes, we are. I do know this circuit, as much as sometimes I don't think I do. Cold Day does manage to make his way past as well. Victor Barris also doing the same thing. So it looks as though everyone's starting to fall back a little bit there in the midfield, and Danny O'Keefe is having to defend from a very aggressive Emmanuel Gibano. And Emmanuel has an unfortunate spin there. Manages to stay off the racing line, needs to keep staying off the racing line as everyone does come through. And I believe that was Hallmark also having a little bit of a mistake there from himself. But he manages to make it safely back onto the track. So now we're looking at basically a battle here between Victor Barris and Cold Day for 12th. Victor obviously wanting to gain a couple more positions now, back again after what happened on the start. Jake Potts having an unfortunate incident which did take out the 2 DriveX team and himself. That's why they are so far down the field. Normally you wouldn't see them be this far back, but unfortunately that is how the race has gone today. Speaking of days, Cold Day is managing to keep ahead of Victor Barris. And Victor Barris doing an amazing job at just sort of staying with the car in front, but Cole doing an amazing job at defending. Obviously we know how quick Victor Barris is, so obviously it's almost inevitable that Victor's probably going to get past at some point, but doesn't look like it's going to be right now. So potentially waiting and seeing if he can make a move into the final chicane. Is not a really orthodox place to do it. We will stay on board and see whether or not Victor Barris does have the slipstream here going down the back straight. Is he going to look for the move up the inside? He is staying with him for now. He looks to the inside. Is he going to actually send it? No, he backs off just at the last moment, but says to Cole, hey, mate, I'm here. If you make a mistake, I'm going to be right on it, and I'm going to look to send it every lap. You've got to make up in your head whether or not I'm actually sending it. And indeed, at the moment, it looks like Victor Barris is very aggressive into turn 1, but manages to just hold off for now. Cold Day getting a really good exit there and really holding him off. Joachim Flubman doing an amazing job in P1 at the moment, setting fastest lap of the race as well. I will jump on board with this battle here for P10. Sean Roberts looking up the inside. Gonna have to give the room to Patrick Olsen. Patrick Olsen doing an amazing job, and then very, very close there on corner exit. Almost looked as though they might touch. And I believe that's Jake Potts getting involved between all this as well. It is. So Jake Potts is a lap down, but is trying to make his way past. And it just about needed he do that. That was a very, very brave move to maybe try and go up the inside there of the chicane. Jake Potts obviously a lap down as it stands at the moment, and is trying to make his way through as fast as possible to maybe end up in a situation where he's not finishing last in this race. As we now jump back on board with this battle between Cold Day and Victor Barris. Victor Barris has gotten past. But I believe there is another battle further up the road, and Matt Turner does get past Brandon Walker, who did have an incident and maybe even a slowdown here from skipping that chicane. So Stuart Gibbons is now past, and Frankie has managed to get past. So that puts Matt Turner in 4th, Frankie in 5th, Stuart in 6th for the Cuda team. And Stuart is doing an amazing job at just managing that car through. Brandon Walker obviously is going to try and look to make his way past Arturo Mayorga, also trying to make some moves here in that Blue Frog racing car. And I believe Frankie is a privateer for us here in the IFL, but doing an amazing job at keeping where they are currently in P5, and staying with the drivers ahead of them as well. So Danny O'Keefe did set the fastest lap of the race last time by as well. Just people who are trying to keep on track with who's gaining bonus points for fastest laps, as Stuart Gibbons does lock up there a little bit to try and avoid Frankie, avoid trying to hit the rear end of that car. Victor Barris and Sean Roberts also battling a little bit further back. Victor Barris sending it up the inside very aggressively, almost took out Jake Potts there. And I'd imagine Victor Barris is being very aggressive for good reason. He wants every position he can get. He didn't lose a lap, unlike Jake Potts and his teammates. So even though he was involved in the same position, I think he managed to get back to the pit lane just in time, which has now allowed him to get back out here. And if he can hold it into the chicane, as he easily does so, it seemed like, that will be him further up the field now and trying to make a charge towards Patrick Olsen ahead of him. But Cold Day is looking to try and make a move up the inside here of Sean Roberts into turn number 1 we go. Sean doing a good job at trying to defend, but not quite good enough, as Cole does go around the outside, holds it on the apex of the next corner. And then this is Cole now looking down Victor Barris to see whether or not he can make a move. Sean Roberts not really able to get past currently, and Patrick Olsen having to do a mega job of defending from a very hard charging Victor Barris, who does send it up the inside, and it looks like there was contact there being made between the two of them. It looked like it was a bit of netcode contact, but that means Victor Barris is now passed, and Victor Barris is now up into P10, so into the points, and we'll be trying to push now to catch up to the back of Danny O'Keefe, who is currently 3 seconds up the road, so a little bit further back than they would have liked to have been, but definitely still close enough. We know Victor Barris's pace is strong, so if Victor can keep up the pace that he's showing, then potentially we will see a new we'll see a battle, sorry, for P9, not a new race leader. I'm so used to Victor Barris obviously being the leader of these races so often that for the fact that Joachim Flubman is leading this race, it's seeming like it's been an absolutely just unpredictable start. Obviously, Jake Potts, one of the talking points of the race, I think, is Jake Potts spinning it there on the start of the race, and then unfortunately causing an incident where Victor Barris and Antonio Jimenez got both involved with it, and that was about it. Matt Turner now, I believe, has dropped a couple positions, and I believe that was spun there into turn 1. I'm not quite sure what happened with him, but we'll have to take a look here, because he's now getting passed by a couple of people. So let's see what happened here with Matt Turner, because he lost quite a few positions here, and as he goes into turn number 1, just unfortunately sends it a little bit too hard, and that is him losing positions and time hand over fist. I believe loses another one here on corner exit as well, potentially. No, it looks like he got back on track just in time. Let's jump back on board here with this unfortunate incident there through the chicane, and I'm not sure who got involved with that. I believe that was Danny O'Keefe again getting involved, and I believe that was also, I'm not sure what other car was involved there. I believe there was another driver involved. It looked like it was another Lumos car, but I think we only have one racing today. But that is Danny O'Keefe, unfortunately, having a second incident this race, and one that is probably going to take him out of gaining any positions, I should say. So Danny O'Keefe, with no front wing, is going to have to be very careful here into turn 1 and have to take it very slow. We'll have to look back and on board and see what happened here between all those incidents, because Yeah, I wasn't really sure what happened. We just obviously jumped back on board to see a battle between Stuart Gibbons, as Stuart goes into the chicane, unfortunately just loses it, and then there's your collision with Stuart Gibbons, and Stuart tries to get off the racing line, and unfortunately that was it. That was Danny O'Keefe being collected. So Stuart Gibbons, Danny O'Keefe, and Brendan Walker all involved in that incident. I believe that was Stuart Gibbons also trying to make his way past. So Danny O'Keefe is now back into the pit lane, is going to have to repair that car before we get back going again. And that has now promoted Victor Barris back up into P5, so there has been a lot of shift due to that incident. And now quite a few people who are probably going to be down a lap or two as well. So we were looking at potentially a really nice race here between Potts, Jimenez, and Barris for pole position in qualifying, and then maybe the lead of the race between Potts, Victor Barris, and Antonio Jimenez. But unfortunately, with the incident that Jake Potts had, and then compound with this issue now between Stuart Gibbons as well, it's looking like there's a lot of people who are very out of position and are gonna have their work cut out for them for the rest of this race. Obviously, we will have another 25 laps to go if you include this one. Obviously, we are now on lap 11 of 35, not 25. And Frederick Larson is currently flying right now. He is, or has, set the fastest Sector 3 last lap. Quite close to setting the fastest Sector 2 time as well, but everyone within the top 3 setting the exact same Sector 2 time. Is interesting to note. And just as I say that, Frederick Larson did have a little mistake there. Through Sector 2, did lose a little bit of time, so is not as close as he otherwise would be. This is our closest battle on track right now, Sean Roberts and Cole Day. We're going to see whether or not Sean can make up the time and then maybe get the move made here on Cole Day up into P6. Manuel Gibano now within a second of Halmir as well. So I'll have to wait and see whether or not Emmanuel can make any sort of moves. I believe they are on the... They're just coming through halfway part of the lap, so we'll have to keep on board with that one and see whether or not that changes. But Cole Day and Sean Roberts definitely trying to make some sort of move together here. Currently, the two drivers setting kind of similar pace, but I think Cole is the quicker driver out of the two of them here. And then Victor Barris obviously a little bit further up the road, probably going to be pushing Cole Day on. Cole probably thinking about Victor Barris further up and being like, I can stick with this guy, and if I can, maybe I can pick up a few more positions, pick up maybe P4, P3 potentially, depends on if anyone else makes a mistake. Would be nice to get on the podium, especially after an unpredictable race like this one. Jake Potts currently one of the fastest men on track currently, and just as I say that, sets a purple Sector 2 to prove my point. So Jake Potts doing a sort of a very big recovery drive, currently down a lot of time on Antonio Jimenez, who's the car ahead of him, and then down even further off of everyone else, down an entire lap on everyone else on the field right now. So unfortunately, with that early incident, Jake Potts has managed to suffer from it. We're going to see whether or not Sean can make anything here down into Sector 3, down into the final corner of Sector 3. Sean Roberts a little bit too far back to make a move this time by. It doesn't even look like he got a really good run through the chicane, actually, and ended up in a situation where Cole was just faster through that part of the circuit. I think it's a little bit of an ebb and flow currently between these two drivers. I think Cole is faster in some parts, Sean is faster in others. And they're both in terms of overall lap time, very, very similar indeed. I'd imagine that with lap times like these at the moment, we're not really going to be seeing anyone making any sort of positions, and it's going to come down to a pit strategy battle, I think. Obviously, a lot of people are close, but I don't think anyone is making any sort of moves right now. I think everyone's just trying to settle into a groove with wherever they are on track right now, and just try to keep out of the way of any other trouble that could be potentially happening. These are your closest three. Victor Barris, currently the fastest of this train, here in 5th position. Cole Day and Sean Roberts there in 6th and 7th. Trying to push on for anything they can, but a battle that has just started to develop is this battle for 1st place. No, sorry, the battle for 3rd place, potentially. As Frederick Larson has managed to catch up to the back of Dominic Herbert and maybe try and make a move up the inside. Dominic Herbert having to pick up the pace a little bit to avoid an attack from Frederick Larson behind him. And obviously if Frederick Larson can make this pass, then he's going to be looking to see how much quicker he can be than Joachim Flubman, who is still leading this race and has been very controlling almost for the entire race and done a very good job at doing so. But we know that Frederick wants this win. He wants this race win. Opting for a lower downforce package than we'd normally see from one of these drivers. Very low downforce indeed, almost like Monza levels of downforce in comparison to what we're seeing from Dominic Herbert and Joachim Flubman. But if you can make it work, then why not indeed? You're going to be faster in a straight line, which helps coming out of the hairpin here, going into the chicane, but maybe not as quick through the middle sector. You just see how much time he gained there. It was almost like 0.3 of a second. So Frederick Larson making the straight line speed work, but maybe not necessarily the cornering speeds that he would like in comparison to the drivers ahead of him. Obviously these F3 cars don't have a massive amount of downforce anyway, so the fact that they are running so little probably isn't making a massive difference. A lot of the grip from these cars is coming from mechanical grip through the suspension, through the tires, through the roll bars, everything else, trying to make it work, make that car glued to the road. And that is what Frederick is currently wanting from his car. He's wanting this car glued as tightly as it can to the surface, trying to be as fast as possible. Because if he can be as fast as possible, then he may end up in a situation where he's overtaking Herbert for 2nd place. And then, later on in this race, we may see a battle for 1st position as well. So Frederick Larson is still closing up onto the back of Herbert. Doing an amazing job at doing so, is taking out a massive chunk of time here in this middle sector. We'll have to wait and see sort of what the lap times look like as we get on power exit here, out of the hairpin. Looking now down, it almost looks as though Frederick has DRS assistance here down the back straight with how different the wings are, but no DRS in this league, I can assure you. So this is the downforce levels he is running with the entire race. He's going to look up the inside of the chicane and does manage to make that move before the chicane actually even comes into effect. So amazing job from Frederick Larson using the straight line speed of that car to make his move made, make his statement known, and he is now going to try and push as hard as he can to catch up to the back of Joachim Flubman, but needs to defend here in Sector 1 with all the twisty corners. Needs to be careful that Dominic Herbert doesn't attack him from behind. We will jump on board with Dominic and see whether or not we can get some sort of an indication as to just how much quicker he is through these corners. Obviously having to back up a little bit to not rear end the back of Frederick. And again, we see how tight this circuit is. It is so tight between all these corners that there is really not much room in the middle sector to try and make an overtake. Surprised to not see Dominic Herbert there jumping into the slipstream, but opting to instead just try and make a run through. And as we see a lot of tire marks there on the exit of that, a lot of drivers clearly hitting that with their outside wheels. Just through the races gone by, and then just never got repainted, unfortunately. I'd imagine it's one of those things that it happens so often that you just end up not repainting it, and instead you just end up with a result of, well, even as it is, it looks good and has some sort of history to it. But Dominic not able to really get close enough in the slipstream, and that's showing you just how close that downforce, or sorry, just how insane that downforce level difference is. And now Frederick Larsen, obviously with Dominic Herbert now finally coming in for his first pit stop on lap 17, so right about halfway through the race. We'd imagine that Herbert is now going to try and make a move on Frankie before Frankie comes into the pits. We'll have to wait and see where Herbert does come out. I'd imagine it will be ahead of Mayorga. I wonder how close he will be to our race leader, Joachim Flubman, as Jake Potts has indeed now set the fastest lap of the race. I believe O'Keefe and Leharas has also retired from this race, and so has Emmanuel Giberno. So Matt Turner, Olsen and Barris also looking to try and gain some positions off of people retiring from this race. So I have to maybe check what happened there from those drivers' point of views. Jake Potts doing an amazing job right now, just trying to maintain his pace and try to get into a position where he can just try to bounce back almost from this unfortunate incident, but it's going to be very difficult. Frederick Larsen now looking to try and extend the gap from Flubman, as Flubman has now come into the pits, so we're going to see just what the lap times look like with Joachim Flubman coming into the pit lane. We'll see what his last lap was as he comes out of the pit lane, and then compare it to what Frederick Larsen's in lap will be, which promotes Frankie up into P2 as well. Cole Day has now come into the pits, so Sean Roberts is also now coming into the pits as well. A lot of drivers opting to pit slightly later in this race, obviously quite a few drivers already having pitted. I believe top of which is Dominic Herbert, who is currently 27 seconds behind and did get past Joachim Flubman. So I wonder whether or not Joachim had any sort of damage to his car, because normally you're expecting a 37-second pit lane time, and that was a 49-second time. So without that damage, I'd imagine that Flubman would currently be in third place right now. But unfortunately, due to some sort of damage, I'd imagine that was picked up through the Turn 1 incident, he opted to repair it, and that's now put him down into fourth. Still one position up from where he started, of course. But it does now mean that Flubman is going to be trying to charge on ahead, and what that will probably also mean is Frederick Larsen, when he comes into the pits, if he can extend this gap, is going to be your leader of the race. But we'll have to wait and see when he comes into the pits. Obviously, we are now starting lap 19 here of 35, so only another 16 or so laps to go. Frederick Larsen doing a good job now at just extending the gap, a 1:30.8 last time by for Frederick Larsen. And for Joachim Flubman, it was a 1:50 on his last lap, obviously including the pit lane timer, so I imagine this out lap is the one we're looking for as well. But yeah, to have a almost 12-second increase on your standard pit lane time, you're looking at Joachim Flubman probably repairing some damage there. I believe Sean Roberts has now finally left the pit lane. Victor Barris, unfortunately, having an issue further down the field. Imagine is going again, so maybe not too bad. But just hearing from a couple of drivers as to why Danny O'Keefe is not in this race. Obviously, having a couple of unfortunate incidents, and then also, unfortunately, getting an accidental DQ in the race. So, Danny is not going to be best pleased with that, I'd imagine. But Frankie is now in the pits following Frederick Larsen's footsteps, and we will see whether or not Frederick can come out ahead of Dominic Herbert. That is the battle that we're looking for, and the one we're looking to see. We're going to see whether or not Dominic can come out in the race lead. Frederick Larsen is now exiting the pit lane and is going to get out ahead, but does spin immediately. Coming out of the race, does spin on the exit there of... So we'll have to wait and see what happened here into turn 1. Just unfortunately comes out of the pit lane, spins it immediately. And that is going to mean that he is now 2 seconds behind this man, our race leader now, Dominic Herbert, who seemed to have had a lot of things gifted his way. Obviously with Joachim having damage and then Frederick Larsen spinning it on pit exit. It's not looking like it's a good day for Frederick Larsen. Obviously, has gained a couple of positions. He's currently in P2, so can't really complain too much. But Dominic Herbert doing an amazing job of just keeping it clean. And apparently that's all you've needed today. Just keep it clean, keep it nice and tidy, and the race is basically yours. Having to avoid there, I believe that was Hulmar getting out of the way and being lapped. So I believe that will be Jake Potts coming through for P10. So Jake Potts finally in the points after his unfortunate incident. Jake Potts looking up to the inside of Dominic Herbert as well to unlap himself from the race lead. So Jake Potts is now on the lead lap. Unless he got a slowdown and then immediately gets passed by Dominic Herbert again. So, unfortunate there for Jake Potts. Got past, was on the lead lap, immediately makes a mistake into the chicane, and that is him now back down onto the onto being lapped. Well, we know he's quick enough to where once he gets past, it should be all good, and he should be able to just run away with it. But if they keep battling like this, obviously Dominic is going to have to then worry about Frederick Larsen catching up, because when you're battling, you lose time. You're not going at your quickest when you're going side by side with another driver and taking on optimal lines. So the fact that Jake Potts can't really get past here, and then Dominic Herbert is also defending for his life on a driver who is lapped as well, you're looking at maybe a little bit of a mistake almost in terms of Dominic Herbert's racecraft. And then Jake Potts just again just having an unfortunate incident, and that is again him around, and I believe there was almost a little bit of contact there between the two of them as well. I believe he wasn't expecting Jake to be so slow on the apex, and a little tap and Jake Potts goes round. So Dominic Herbert is in the lead of this race and now can get back to where he was and start setting faster laps, but at what cost? Because Frederick Larsen is now on the charge and is trying to catch up as quick as he can, because he does only have 13 laps to do it. 13 laps if you don't include this one, so more like 14 laps to try and make this move. 14 laps to make this move, currently 2 seconds ahead. I think if Frederick Larsen is quicker, he will be able to get past. But we have seen throughout this entire race that Dominic Herbert is also very quick. We've seen it several times that Dominic Herbert has just managed to maintain his race pace and sort of hold himself into a really good light, actually, of where he's kept it clean. He's just put the car where it needed to be, and unfortunately with a little bit of backmarker trouble with Jake Potts being so aggressive, wanting to get past, obviously was around the same sort of pace race wise as the other guys around him, so just in a bit of an awkward situation. It does look like Frederick Larsen is indeed the quicker of these two, and with that lower downforce trim from his car, you'd imagine that going down the straight here, and we see the difference in speed as well. The difference in speed between these two in just the straights alone. We'll see going through the start-finish straight here. Well, the top speed for Dominic Herbert was looking like 229, but 236 for Fredrik Larsson. So that's in kilometers an hour, by the way, for those of you who were wondering. I would convert to miles an hour, but I can't remember what the conversion rate is off the top of my head. But even still, that is quite a big difference. Probably looking about 3 or 4 mile an hour difference. Almost 10 kilometers an hour difference. And you know, it's one of those things that if Dominic isn't careful, then he's gonna have to really push these twisty sections and get away from Fredrik in them, because in sectors, well, in the final sector, sector 3, really all it is a hairpin and a straight, and that straight is very long, and the corner after that isn't really a downforce corner, so as long as you've got good mechanical grip, then you should be alright. If you're Fredrik Larsson, and you are now within a second, so you are seeing that rear wing get ever closer, you're probably looking at it going, well, all I really need to do is just wait until there's a long enough straight and pass him there. I don't have to make a move, make a hero move into any of these corners. I can just sit where I am, keep doing what I'm doing. Last lap, Fredrik Larsson did almost set the fastest lap of the race, and I'd imagine this lap is also going to be quite similar, 131.1, so indeed very, very fast here from Fredrik Larsson. When I say fastest lap of the race, I actually didn't check, but Antonio Jimenez and Jake Potts, 130.5 for Jimenez, 130.2 for Jake, so Jake is on an absolute mission right now. Unfortunately, I think that mission is too little too late. Victor Barres is actually now out on track again, after having, I believe there was an incident Victor Barres had a couple laps ago, but he's been in the pit lane for an awfully long time. It was a 4-minute pit lane, so I imagine that was some serious damage to that car. But he's now back out again, is looking to try and probably not make up any positions anymore, but at least just finish the race. Whereas Fredrik Larsson is currently a man who is looking to try and make a position, is looking to try and take pole, oh, sorry, not pole, but the lead of the race from Dominic Herbert. Gets an amazing run through the chicane. As we see in the background, Jake Potts also trying his best to go as fast as he can, and this is going to be your move for the lead. Fredrik Larsson up the inside of Dominic Herbert. Dominic Herbert trying to fight back, but nothing doing just yet on corner exit. Is Dominic Herbert going to have the acceleration? Is he going to have the speed? Because Fredrik Larsson, once you get up and running, Fredrik Larsson's low downforce package is going to take away that slipstream advantage almost. It seems as though that car is so much quicker that even with slipstream, it's very, very difficult to find your way past. So Fredrik Larsson having an amazing time of it now in the lead of this race, and is probably going to take, I believe, his first F3 win here if he can keep it up. Obviously, we don't want to do any commentators cursing, but Fredrik Larsson is a driver that we know is not going to be phased by Dominic Herbert in the background, is not going to be phased by any sort of move that Dominic tries to make. And then down the straights, as we see here, before we even get to the hairpin, look at how much that gap has now extended. Dominic Herbert has just been left in the dust of Fredrik Larsson, and Fredrik Larsson's probably just looking in his mirrors and going, well, that car's getting very far away very quickly. If I just keep doing what I'm doing, then all is easy. I can just relax. You know, I can just sit here, do my normal pace, and just take it easy into the final chicane. Don't want to bin it into the wall of champions, but if I just keep it nice and tidy, then I've got this in the bag. And with 25 laps now on the cards, going on to lap 26 here, there's only 9 more laps. And I think That'll be all she wrote for the lead of the race. Because Herbert's already been dropped a second in 1 lap. So Frederick Larsen is on an absolute mission right now. On an absolute tear to try and just extend the gap as much as he can so he can then just relax. Jake Potts obviously coming back as well at these two, but Jake Potts not really fighting for any positions, but may make it a bit awkward for Dominic Herbert and then maybe even make it awkward for Frederick Larsen later down the line. So unless Dominic Herbert's been trying to save some tyres, we really need to see Dominic try to go on the offensive and try to really attack Frederick Larsen here. Otherwise, Frederick Larsen is going to be able to run away with it and is going to be able to take the win of this Canadian Grand Prix. Unfortunately, not on the last lap, as we always hear from the intro, done by Alex Scherner. Doing a great job on all things IFL. If you want to get yourself involved, obviously do check us out on our website, www.iFormulaLeague.com. While you're at it, sign yourself up. Get yourself involved. Obviously, the season is near enough at its close, with only 2 rounds left to go, but you could be here for Season 4. If you want to get involved in Season 4, then make sure you do follow along. You get yourself involved in the Discord. It is linked down below in the description of this video that you are watching right now. If you can get yourself involved, then absolutely do so. Looking at making a couple changes, obviously to better the league for going forward. I'd appreciate every and all input. I believe Matt Turner had an unfortunate collision a little bit further down the field, and Victor Barris has now managed to gain a position off of that. So Victor Barris still gaining positions if he just finishes the race. It's not going to be that many now with 4 laps down on everyone else ahead of him. And not that many laps left to go. Make it 8 laps next time by, so... And as far as I can see, Frederick Larsen has done what he needed to do and just extended that gap massively. Once he got out into the lead, that was kind of it. That was a bit short-lived between himself and Dominic Herbert, but once he got past, we saw that he was quicker. And that's all she wrote. Jake Potts now on the back of Dominic Herbert as well, and trying to get past so that he's at least not lapped by 2nd place and only lapped by 1st. So we'll keep on board and just see how aggressive Jake Potts wants to be. And has set the fastest lap of the race as well with a 1:29.98. Keep in mind, obviously, the Teams Championship one that we look at here in the IFL is quite an important championship as well. And I believe there is a battle currently going on for 2nd and 3rd in the Teams Championship between Orion Racing, who Frederick races for, and the Lumos Motorsports team, who Jake Potts races for. So being able to take any points here is definitely what Jake is wanting to do. With how Jake is at the moment. But imagine if Jake got through turn 1 cleanly, lap 1, we'd be talking about a completely different result. Completely different result. We'd be talking about Potts doing, arguably leading the race and controlling it very well from Jimenez and Barris, but unfortunately, as we all know, mentioned it a few times already, that early mistake unfortunately cost him arguably not an easy win. I don't think you ever look at a race and say that it was easy, but definitely not one you look at and say would have been your hardest fought race win, especially with the pace that he's got right now. Lapping almost a second quicker than anyone else currently. Victor Barris, the only driver who's even close right now in terms of lap times. If we were talking about a time trial session, then definitely Jake Potts would be up there. Jake Potts followed by Victor Barris, I believe. then be followed by Antonio Jimenez. But obviously this is not a time trial session. This is a race session. Unfortunately, if you get a mistake in a race session, that is all she wrote for you, and is going to be all she wrote for his chances of finishing P1. Although he will still try and battle for it, as if he was battling for position. I believe Frederick Larson here is just going to let him go as well if Jake gets close enough. I believe Frederick will know that Jake is a lot quicker than him, and just to not risk anything, just going to sit out there in front. And then as Jake gets close, touches the wall of champions there a little bit too close to the wall. Again, another very quick lap from Jake Potts, 1:30.26. Again, fastest man out on track at the moment. Lapping 3/10 quicker than Antonio Jimenez. Brandon Walker, unfortunately, having a little bit of an issue. Looking to see where Brandon is on track at the moment, actually. I don't think the issue affected him too much. Could have been just a little bit of a spin. Yeah, some amazing results here from Dominic Herbert and Joachim Flubman as well. Cole Day up 6 positions, Arturo up 8, Stuart Gibbons also for the CUDA team up 8. Well, so just an amazing job from a lot of these guys, I think. A lot of these guys that you would normally not see pushing themselves up to the highest level, and instead proving that they can, if they really put themselves to it, they can have that sort of top tier pace. Joachim Flubman not too far off fastest lap of the race either. At least wasn't until Jake set that 1:29.98. Which means that Flubman was now 7/10 off. In terms of race session, I mean, that's still pretty damn close. Jake Potts does now get past Frederick Larson relatively easily. I think Frederick just let him through and just went, you know what? You're quicker than me, you're a back marker, don't need to fight you too hard. I'm gonna worry about my own thing, do my own thing, because I don't have that many laps left. Only 4 more tours of the little island that we're at here in Montreal, Canada. Lovely place. You've never been? I've never been, but I've heard. I've heard stories. It is indeed a lovely place, and something that I would like to visit sometime. I'd love to go to this circuit in real life and see a race around here. I think it'll be really, really cool. Jake Potts is really trying to leave his mark on this circuit, as it were. I think he's hit every single Wall of Champions style wall on this circuit. He's at least clipped them all. Trying to push for absolutely everything. He is aware that he does have fastest lap of the race, right? Someone has told him that. Brandon Walker does finally come out of the pit lane after having his unfortunate incident. So it is now a little bit further down than he would have liked. Brandon Walker in P8, obviously for the privateer team. Behind Stuart Gibbons, who is in P7 for his, well, for Brandon Walker's previous team, the CUDA Works team. Where's Stuart in the other team? But unfortunately, it looks like there was an incident there with Dominic Herbert as I was talking absolute nonsense. Dominic Herbert, unfortunately, having a little spin through turn 1. I heard it in the background. Wasn't quite sure who it was. Let's see what happens into turn 1. Into the second part of it, and unfortunately, that is it. Joachim Flubman is through. So Flubman now in second place, and quite a way ahead. Although I think Flubman, just as I say that, had another incident himself. So was ahead, and then going into the next corner, oh, unfortunately clips the apex clips that big curb, and there goes Dominic Herbert once again. So Lubman now back into 3rd place. Now actually has to worry a little bit. If he makes another mistake like that, has to kind of worry about Cold Day being a little bit too close for comfort. We are on lap 32, so only 3 laps to go here in the IFL Formula 3 round number 12. The season 3. Obviously looking at season 4 in a couple races time, and then also a little bit of a break in between. Let everyone get settled with doing what they want to do moving forward. Gives the admins also a chance to have a little bit of a break, a little bit of a breather before we get back racing again. Although I'd imagine that if some of you know that there's no time off when you're in a job like admin. It might seem like an off season for the drivers, but for everyone who works behind the scenes, we're trying to work as hard as possible to make season 4 the best season in the IFL so far. Obviously we want to improve every single season, that's the goal. But Jake Potts just looked up to my timing screen. Jake, do you want to slow down a little? I think he might actually be I think he's just trying to prove that he's got the pace and he could have quote unquote run this race easily. Because he's just gone and set fastest lap of the race, 129.88. I'm sure a lot of you saw that when it came up on the screen. It was like, geez, Jake, what are you doing, buddy? But no, absolutely incredible pace from Jake. I don't think it will be close enough to catch up to the back of Antonio Jimenez. Oh, who knows? If Antonio makes a mistake, Jake keeps pushing. Jake will be ahead of Antonio, and hey, in P9. No one else really that close on track. Antonio Jimenez kind of in a world of his own as well. We've talked about him a lot this race, just unfortunately getting caught up with a lot of other issues. Same with his teammate Victor Barris, who is a lot further down in the grid. Jake Potts, a man who we've talked about a lot of as well. And we are almost going on to the final lap of the race. Frederick Larson currently halfway through lap number 34. So almost coming up to the close, and honestly it's been a little bit of a slow burn, this one. We've had a lot of controversial collisions happening, a lot of incidents. Obviously with turn 1, Jake Potts just getting on the power too early, collected Victor Barris and Antonio Jimenez, and then later on Danny O'Keefe got involved in another incident between I believe it was Stuart Gibbons and Brendan Walker. Just unfortunate, really, that a lot of people have just suffered, to be honest, with a lot of these issues. Antonio Jimenez's car there didn't sound like it was too healthy as he got on the throttle. Almost sounded as though he was missing a gear, or potentially running out of fuel. But Frederick Larson has indeed, once he got past Dominic Herbert, commanded the race, really, from here on out. It was hard fought, though, to get here and to gain 3 positions. Obviously, a lot of them having happened quite early on. Managed to avoid the turn 1 incident. And once he got past, it almost looked as though it was all to play for. Obviously, the pit lane a factor. Dominic Herbert hitting 3 laps earlier and having a slightly longer pit lane time, but unfortunately the gap wasn't quite long enough for where Frederick Larson could get that sort of free pit stop that we all aim for in these types of races. But here we go, Dominic Herbert 10 seconds behind this man, Frederick Larson, who is coming through, rounding out the final corner here to win the Canadian Grand Prix And Frederick Larson, take a bow, my friend. You have not only won the Canadian Grand Prix, but also your first race in the Formula 3 series here. Had a lot of good results in the Formula 2, but Frederick Larson finally getting what he's so deserved. What he's had the pace for a lot of the time, and now we're going to try and do a couple of donuts. A little bit of a false start on the first one, but here we go. That's what we're looking for. Some big boy donuts from Frederick Larson. Finally gets his win, and he's very happy about it, I imagine. And then Joachim Flubman as well. Third place for Flubman. I mean, what can you say? He's got to be happy with that. And Dominic Herbert as well, picking up P2. Amazing job from them. Amazing job from them all. Our 3 podium sitters. With Colday in 4th, Frankie in 5th, Stuart Gibbons in 6th, Arturo in 7th, doing an amazing job. Stuart Gibbons also being one of the ones who's gained the most. Up 9 positions from the start, started P15, so up to P6 is an amazing job from him. Then, as we say, Brandon Walker in P8, Antonio Jimenez in P9, and Jake Potts in P10, so did manage to gain some positions and some points there in the end after that unfortunate incident between them all. And then Sean Roberts in P11, Almar in P12, Victor Barris in P13, Matt Turner P14, Emmanuel P15, Patrick Olsen there in P16, Danny O'Keefe in P17, and then Daniel retiring in P18. Well, so a couple of retirements, but also a couple of unexpected incidents that almost sort of forced them in a way. But that is, as I say, the race as it stands. We will bring up the race results for you all. We'll put those on the screen, hopefully. See if I can put those on the screen anyway. Take a look at the results page here. Frederick Larson, obviously our race winner. And you know what I want to do? I want to get an interview with our race winner, our man himself, Frederick Larson, and just hear just how excited he is, because I imagine he's going to have some pretty big energy right now. Frederick, mate, finally it happens. Finally you get yourself that P1. I mean, we saw you doing donuts at the end, mate. I mean, let's not talk about what happened at the start of those donuts. But we'll talk about what happened in the middle bit.
What's that on the stream?
When you started to try and do the donuts and you missed the first one and then had to sing it and send it round. But hey, you got the donuts eventually. You got them eventually.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, amazing job for yourself, as you say, you know, P1. I mean, you started P4, an unfortunate incident into turn 1, but you managed to get through it pretty cleanly in comparison to a lot of other people. Obviously, your teammate being one of the ones who got involved, I believe. And yeah, I mean, ever since then, you sort of just had your own race and controlled it pretty well.
I'll actually say that that was probably the worst start I've ever had. I missed the clutch point totally, and it ended up being one of the best starts I ever had because of that I didn't hit anyone on the first lap. So yeah, I was so surprised to see that I was P3 when I got past all those cars. So yeah, it was kind of lucky, but I mean it still counts. So that's always something.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, you did get past, and that does mean that, as you mentioned, you know, you had a little bit of a bogged start, but hey, if it avoids an incident like that, then, you know, you've seen what happens when you keep it clean. You know, you end up, yes, P3 out of the start from where you were, you gained a position, but maybe if you'd nailed the start, we would be not necessarily talking to you as a race winner, but talking to you as sort of a member of the unfortunate collision that took out a lot of other drivers. I believe it was just, as I said before, Jake Potts just having that unfortunate spin. But hey, you know, that's what happens lap 1 sometimes, you know, cold tires, and definitely, you know, turn 1 is tricky around this circuit. We've seen it a lot before, but yeah, I mean, even still, I believe, as I said before, this is your first race win here, at least as far as the F3 is concerned, so that's got to feel pretty good for yourself, right?
Yeah, it is. It's finally happened, and yeah, I'm just happy to get a podium, to be honest. And to get a win is just even better. And also, I saw that Floodman and
Yep.
now I can't remember his name. Herbert.
Herbert,
Yeah, they
yeah.
were P2 and P3. Yeah, they also. I mean, I think the biggest talents in this season. Floodman, he has always been quick, but he hasn't been the most consistent guy. It seems like he was that today. And Herbert, he's also he's just getting better and better for each race. So massive shout out to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, you know, we said before with this being your first win, and as I say, I'm not sure if it was your first podium in F3. I couldn't quite remember, but I definitely know that it was your first win. So, and as I say, we mentioned it before the broadcast and how you've done really well in F2, and it just hasn't quite translated to the F3. So to finally see it happen is just absolutely amazing. As you say, couldn't happen to a nicer guy. I think you've definitely been a sport all season. It's been amazing. Sort of watch you in these races, and definitely talking to you post race as well. You have a really good energy about it. So really awesome to see.
Yeah, I'm just happy. I think it might be the track conditions that helped me today. There was that heavy thunderstorm yesterday during the Formula 2 race. Yeah, so I think that helped me a bit. I was feeling very comfortable in this sort of green track.
Yeah, it's it caught a lot of people off guard. I think obviously the unfortunate weather incidents cancelling the F2 race yesterday, but yeah, definitely today we've made up for it with honestly a pretty good race overall. I think obviously, we've said that a lot of the time that these races, the F3 is where you want to be honest. I think it's one of the bigger grids out here, and the driver talent as well on display is just so good that you can have a battle being anywhere on the grid. It's really...
Yeah. Initially, I actually thought that I would get past Herbert pretty quickly, because it's not because he's slow, but my car was it was pretty much a rocket on the straights. I was gaining half a second on everybody on the straight before the chicane. So I thought, yeah, this is gonna be easy. But then he started to defend really well, so I couldn't quite make it work until, I did it twice, but yeah, it was difficult.
Yeah, I know. I saw you running a lot lower downforce than a lot of other cars. I think one of the only ones actually on that, what I call Monza aero as it is. But yeah, it was just insane to see you on that straights just being so much quicker. But yeah, I mean, hey, I'll let you get on and celebrate with everyone else. Obviously, with the Orion Racing team, it's big team that you obviously want to try and celebrate with. But yeah, do you have someone else that you want to sort of give a shout out to before I let you go?
Yeah, well, Danny, he nearly outqualified me this time. He thought he did, but then I was a bit quicker than him in the qualifying, and unfortunately, he hit the guys in the beginning. So I think he might have had his first podium this season. Oh no, his second podium this season if it hadn't been for that incident. Yeah, and just team and and then you for commentating this race.
Well, I appreciate it muchly, but yeah, I mean, as I say, unfortunate for Danny, your teammate, but hey, maybe you two can bounce back and maybe even take the fight to the DriveX guys here at Zandvoort as well. That would be really cool to see, and maybe you two can finish on the podium. That'd be awesome. Get both the Orion Racing team together, celebrating a nice podium. But yeah, obviously the only way to go for Danny is up, and unfortunately for yourself, the only way to go is either staying in the same place or potentially down. So hopefully it's staying the same and you get another win.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully. But yes, mate, I will let you get off. As I say, thank you for an absolutely amazing race, amazingly entertaining. And as I say, your car was absolutely set up for the straights and you made it work. And yeah, I mean, a win is a win. And yeah, we'll just let you celebrate with your team.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers, mate. Alright, so that was Frederick Larson we have heard from, and we will now try and bring in Dominic Herbert here to get his opinions on a very, very good P2 as well. So, Dominic, amazing job from yourself, mate, obviously to finish P2, and, you avoided the collisions in turn 1. That is a big talking point we have from the race, but, yeah, how do you think it went for yourself?
Unbelievable. Don't know what to say. Real happy. Real happy. A hell of a lot of luck came my way, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you know, that's sometimes how the races go though, right? Like you sometimes just have those situations where, you know, people ahead of you have some incidents, but you manage to keep your nose clean. And hey, I mean, you made it work in P2. Was battling with Frederick Larson near the end, but unfortunately I think his car proved to be a little bit too quick in the straights, and unfortunately managed to catch you. Yeah,
He had the pace. I think that just 6 seconds I got past that first wreck, I went right. Unfortunately, some of the big names have been put into the pits there, so I'm going to keep my nose clean, maybe reduce the pace a little bit, and just try and get it to the end with as high a position as possible. Took an early pit to try and make sure it worked in P2. Yeah, really happy. I would love to have been P1, but I couldn't keep Mr. Larson at bay there.
no, as I say, Larson, it's been so quick all season. But yourself, I mean, this is, correct me if I'm wrong, but your first podium in F3, right?
First podium.
season?
I've been getting closer and closer every race. But yeah,
yeah.
no, super stoked, real excited.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see. Obviously, you get your first podium in your P2. I mean, that's a pretty good result, to be fair. And I assume you're trying to look into follow it up in Zandvoort as well, right?
Hopefully so. Hopefully so. If I can get a week of practice in. I think this week I had my practice for this week's race started 4 hours before the race.
Oh, jeez.
It's been a busy week. It's been a busy week. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you know, it's been a busy week for a lot of people, obviously, with a lot of the endurance racing stuff that's going on. So, you know,
I was surprised we had the turnout we did.
Yeah.
I thought we were certainly going to be a couple of more heads down, to be honest, with the 24 hours going on.
Yeah, but even still, 18 drivers, and you finished P2 out of all of them. I mean, hey, you know, you'll take it when you take it, right?
I'll take it. Absolutely, 100%.
But yeah, I mean, just general thoughts on the race from your point of view. Obviously, you said that you felt like it was pretty lucky, but at the same time, I also think you had the pace. Obviously, you were battling with Flubman for a lot of it as well. So, I mean,
I think Frederick had the pace on the straights for sure. He's running a lower downforce setup, I believe, which can be an irritant in the corners, but the second he gets on the straight, he just disappears. You can't do anything about it. But no, I think qualifying pace, I was probably nearly a second faster than I was in the race, but I really just thought it was best to make it home rather than push too hard and end up in, say, P7 or something.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, hey, I'll let you get off, celebrate with anyone else who you want to celebrate with. But before I let you go, is there anyone else you want to sort of give a shout out to, just thank or anything like that?
Joachim Flubman. He had a spot of bad luck towards the end there. He could have been P2. We both did exactly the same thing, one corner after each other. I feel for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I caught that on the camera as well, because I saw that you had the mistake and was like, oh no, what happened? You know, jump on board. Unfortunately, it spin. And then as I was talking about yours, Flubman does the exact same thing. So maybe a little bit of a commentator's curse. So I will apologize to him for that one. But hey, I
was screaming no, and then a second later I was screaming yes.
But yes, mate, I will, as I say, I will let you get off and celebrate with whoever it is you want to celebrate with. You know, pop yourself some champagne as well, you know, being on the podium, so you deserve it. But yeah, absolutely amazing result, mate. Thank you.
Perfect. Cheers. Thank you very much.
That was, as I say, Dominic Herbert there in P2. Now we will hear from the man himself, Joachim Flubman, obviously P3, and I mean, couldn't happen to a nicer guy. So we'll see if we can pop him in here. Joachim, I mean, P3, mate, you're, I believe, first podium this season. And I mean, it's got to feel good for yourself, right?
I mean, absolutely. That was crazy race. I mean, I haven't even been close to a podium. I mean, I've been trying to get points and failing.
Yeah, so, I mean, to get yourself on the podium, I mean, you say it was absolutely a crazy race, but even in qualifying, it looked like you had that sort of really quick pace, you know, you were looking like you were up there in qualifying, and you were competing for sort of just outside the top 3, and then, unfortunately, turn 1 happened with Jake Potts and collecting with Victor Barris and Antonio Jimenez, and you managed to get through pretty clean. I believe, actually ended up in leading the race
Yeah.
at one point. So, you know, stroke of luck comes your way, but you got to feel pretty happy with how the result went. You know, just you have any other thoughts on what happened?
I mean, it was cool. A lot of firsts for me. I've never started the race behind a safety car in P1 is pretty crazy, and I thought I was going to get completely swallowed. So just leading that lap after the safety car was fun. And then, I mean, leading up to pit stops, I think that Potts kind of took out everyone that was faster than me.
Mhm.
So that was pretty lucky. And I mean, I was pretty much on the same pace, I think, as the other guys on the podium. I just did. I mean, yeah, not used to being in this position. I had an awful pit stop. I spun into the pits.
Ah, okay.
So, I mean, I don't have the data you could probably see, but like that pit stop was
Yeah,
probably
it was
like
10 seconds roundabout slower, which is why I was
Yeah.
wondering. I thought you'd maybe picked up some damage. Was in my initial thought, and that's why the pit stop took a little bit longer. But as you say,
no, it's
spin.
yeah, coming into hot, locked the rear, spun into the actual pit lane. Then when I got to the box, all the like commotion made me forget to put in my fuelage, so I had to do that, and it was just kind of awful.
Yeah, a little bit of a hectic pit stop from the sounds of it. But as you say, I mean, even still, even with all of that, you ended up in P3. I mean, maybe could have been a
I was
P2
in,
or
yeah, I was in P2 for a while there, just because of a spin, and then I spun myself that same lap, so
yeah. I was gonna
I
say
gave it right back.
I didn't want to mention, but we did manage to catch that on the broadcast, unfortunately.
Great.
I think it was maybe a little bit of commentator's curse. I said to, as Dominic Herbert had his spin, I said, "Oh, that's allowed Joachim Flubman to go through," and then just as I said that, I looked up and unfortunately you've had your spin as well. So I will apologise for that one. Maybe cursed you a little, but
I mean, I think
still P3.
I was a bit stupid. I mean, because I went through and saw that Frederick was 4 seconds ahead. I knew I probably couldn't catch him, but I wanted to see if I could get up to his speed. And yeah, I should have just eased off a bit instead.
Hey, I mean, even still, you know, a lesson learned, and definitely you'll take it into the next race at Zandvoort, right? So if hey, maybe another podium's on the cards, you know what to do, and just keep it nice and steady, keep it on the black stuff, and hopefully when you're back again next week, I mean, it'll be an amazing result for yourself. Obviously, you say that you were battling for points a lot of the time, and instead of just podiums, and here you are on the podium, you know, a couple races later. So yeah, it's
super fun to be closer to the pace. Yeah.
Yeah, and as I say, before we let you go, is there anyone you'd like to thank at all?
It's fun having Patrick on the team. We actually did some practice this week, which is great. I mean, he's not on the banana team. He's on the lime banana team. But anyway, just getting the Swedes together makes it feel a little bigger, which is nice.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And as I say, we've definitely picked up on it, and it's nice to see that you guys now have that sort of little family together between the three of you. It's really cool.
Yeah,
as I say, obviously the banana team looking to do really well going forward in later on into the season, and then I'm assuming we'll see you guys back for season 4 as well.
Yeah, I hope so. And also shout out to Hjalmar as well, the true old OG banana. And no, great. Yeah, hope to make it to the next race.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we will, as I say, hopefully see you later, mate. And I mean, again, amazing job from yourself to finish P3, and hopefully we'll see you back again here in Zandvoort.
Yes, have a good one.
Yeah, and you too, mate. Cheers. Cool, and that will, as I say, I just want to double check one thing. We may be able to get an interview with Jake Potts here. Just wondering whether or not he is actually wanting to come in here for an interview. Last little discussion. We'll just sort of get his thoughts in the race. So, yeah, we'll pull him in. Finish P10, but then gonna hear his thoughts about what happened. Hey, Jake. obviously,
Hey.
a little bit of an unfortunate result for yourself, I think, with what happened at turn 1, but hey, you made a comeback, did get fastest lap of the race as well, and at one point I was saying that maybe you were breaking the speed limits a little with going how fast you were, but yeah, I mean, as I say, you showed that you had the pace for, you know, definitely a P1, but just unfortunate to have your incidents. But yeah, I want to see what's sort of your take on it and how the race went from your point of view.
I'm just super sorry to you know, the Tellez and Victor Barris for wrecking them, you know, because that was it's gonna be a good race I was hoping for, but ended up taking all the fastest guys out, so that was quite unfortunate. Just got a little too trigger happy, I guess, and too much throttle, and ended up spinning, and that was not a very good start. And then I knew I had all the pace in the world, but I just I couldn't do anything with it because I spun right at the beginning.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I think as a driver, obviously when it happens lap 1, turn 1, you're like, oh no, you know, I've now got to basically make up for it for the rest of this race. But I mean, hey, you still managed to finish in the points regardless, so you know, that's just a good, probably as good of a result as you probably could have hoped for, right?
It was quite the comeback drive. Like I started a lap down, I made it back to the lead lap, so that was my goal. And kind of almost battled the leaders a little bit, which was interesting as a lap car. Because I mean, I knew I had the pace because I was, I think, like 5 or 6 cents quicker than the next closest guy. So I knew I had the pace around here. It's one of my favorite tracks. I just, oh, if I didn't have that spin early, could have been a really good one. But we'll have to wait for next season and go from here.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, 2 more races left, Zandvoort and then Silverstone as well. Obviously, are you looking forward to any of those? Any of those sort of taking your fancy?
For sure, Silverstone. I'm a big Silverstone fan. I'm not very good at Zandvoort. I'm hoping my teammate James will be back. He was moving.
Okay.
So if he's back, then hopefully we can tear up Zandvoort because I think he's pretty decent there. So maybe you can give me some tips.
Yeah, that would be great to see. And obviously, you know, we want to give a massive shout out to your teammate James, and hopefully the move goes well. Hopefully everything is going well for him. But
Absolutely.
yeah, hopefully he gets everything all sorted and he's back again next week, because you guys, I believe, actually have a battle for P2 in the Teams Championship with the Orion team, right? I believe that's
Sounds
currently
right,
the
yeah.
closest battle right now in the
That
teams.
sounds accurate. I believe Danny O'Keefe and Frederick are right on our tails. And
Yeah.
heck, they might have passed us because Frederick got that W today.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
we'll have to see the results.
yeah, hopefully we can get those, as I say, for next race, so we can see what the standings actually look like. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. But yeah, I mean, hey, we will, as I say, hopefully see you next race. And yeah, we'll see you at Zandvoort, and hopefully talking from a podium and not necessarily an unfortunate P10.
Sounds good. Thanks for commentating.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
Cheers.
All right, and that just about wraps it up here for us in the IFL. Obviously, Jake just popping into the waiting room and was just got a couple thoughts from him. Not something that happens like ever. It was the first for me, but hey, you know, sometimes it's nice to hear from people just throughout the race and throughout the grid, and just getting their thoughts on what happened. So hey, you want to get yourself in for an interview, then pop into the broadcast waiting room. Obviously, we only have a little bit of time, but as I say, not something that we do necessarily often. But hey, we're nearing the end of the season, might as well get in everyone's thoughts and see what they're thinking of the next couple rounds, next season, what they're doing, and stuff like that. But yeah, that'll just about wrap it us here for the iFormula League Season 3 for the Formula 3 Championship, round number 12. And next week we are out here at Zandvoort, and then a week break before the final round here at Silverstone. And as always, it will be amazing if you guys can follow along. Let's just share the love and just keep on racing, because this stuff is what we live for here in the IFL. You know, amazing racing up and down the grid. And hey, hopefully, you know, everyone has fun, enjoys what you're hearing, what you're watching, what you're, you know, racing in potentially. But yeah, that'll be it from us, and we'll see you all next week.